If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
IPVanish protects every device you own. Your phone, your laptop, your smart TV. If it connects to the internet, it should be protected. IPVanish encrypts your connection and masks your IP address, helping keep your browsing private at home and on public Wi-Fi. And with no device limits, one account covers everything. Stream with added privacy. Browse securely. Connect with confidence. Online protection made simple. Right now, save 83% off the 2-year plan. Get started today at ipvanish.com/audio and take control of your privacy with IPVanish.
Welcome to another episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we cover the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, and Badgers basketball and football teams from an optimistic and realistic perspective.
Alrighty, welcome back to another Wisco Fanatics Tuesday evening. We are kicking off the Wisco Fanatics draft series. Now, we've been putting it out on some of our social medias that this year's draft series is going to be very different than previous draft series. So we want to make sure that we hammer on that again because it's going to be very, very different. Where in years past, we've basically looked at Packers positions of need and then just done the top 10 from those positions or the top 15 or the top 5, whatever it may be at those positions, and then highlighted some players. Then we run into a situation where, we're talking offensive tackles in 2024 and we have a top 10 list and 9 out of those 10 go in the first round, and then guys are getting drafted later on and people have never heard us mention any of those names. So we're doing it a little bit differently this year, whereas Jake and I are going to go round by round at the positions of need. So as today is quarterbacks and running backs. We're going to go round by round. We're going to basically just discuss what we're looking for from that position, why it's a position of need. Packers have Jordan Love. Why is quarterback a position of need that we're looking at in the draft? We're going to talk about that. We're going to go round by round and discuss which players that we would pick at that position in that round. And then our top 5, we're doing top 5 for running back. We're going to do 8 to 10, or top 5 for quarterbacks, and 8 to 10 running backs and look at them and be like, my number 1 isn't Jeremiah Love. It's X player in round 4 with that would be the 120th pick. So that's how we're doing it this year. We think it's going to be much more Packers relevant. We think it's going to be more specifically relevant for those of you watching us who are Packers fans, to give names that are much more likely to become future Packers than to give you a top 10 list of say wide receivers who 6 of them are going to be gone before the Packers even get a pick this year and next year because they don't have a first round pick. So we wanted to switch it up. That's the mentality behind the way that we're doing our draft class this year, our draft series. So with that said, we're going to jump into quarterbacks. Now, Jake, looking at quarterbacks as a position of need, obviously the Packers have a franchise quarterback. But with the departure of Malik Willis to go be a starting quarterback with Jeff Hafley in Miami, the Packers have a need for a backup quarterback. Hey, Tay, welcome in. So the Packers are in need of a backup quarterback. Welcome in, Eric. The Packers are in need of a backup quarterback. Now, that brings us to quarterback being position of need. Now, we're looking at guys to be backups. So we did a handful of quarterbacks, and then we have a top 5 guys that we would draft where they are. So I'm just going to say, with looking at backups, I looked at guys around 5 or later. So, Jake, I'll give you an opportunity if you want to shout out anything else that you're looking at for the reason being Packers need to have a backup quarterback, or if there's anybody in round 3 or round 4 that you would be interested in for Packers quarterbacks.
Yeah, so the need for a backup quarterback is pretty obvious, right? I mean, Jordan Love the last 2 years has had some injuries, I guess. He got beat up a little bit. Obviously, a couple of years ago, he was dealing with a leg injury from week 1. And then last year, he kind of did this to himself with the shoulder, I will say. But, obviously backup quarterback is one of the most important positions in sports, in football, because when your main guy goes down, you need a guy that's able to run the offense. So I do have one guy that I have fringed 4th round, maybe 5th round. So I guess I'll shout him out right now. It is Cade Klubnik from Clemson. He was a guy that, coming into college, he was a 5-star recruit. He was a really highly touted recruit out of Texas. He's like a Texas high school legend with all the records that this guy set. But he showed at Clemson, as Clemson was they were kind of up there with the Blue Bloods for a little bit, with the Alabamas and, the Ohio States. Like they were up there with those teams for a couple of years when Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence were running the show, and Cade was supposed to follow in those footsteps. But that's not what happened. He doesn't have very elite arm strength. He has good arm strength. He's a good athlete, but that's his athleticism is why I would draft him in the 4th round. But I do view him more as a 5th round pick. But just wanted to – I have a couple guys on my running back list as well that I'm like, well, I wouldn't be too mad if we took them late in this round, but I would prefer them in the next round.
Yeah, which is very understandable, and that's the kind of context we want to get out there. In addition to, the way that we're kind of switching things up, the other thing that we're hoping to do is to have better context on when we're doing things like mock drafts. Like we have a mock draft show planned for the Tuesday night of the draft, when the draft starts that Thursday, so that we can kind of have some better context. When we're talking later in the draft and we're like, we're just looking at positions of need, whereas when we do things the way that we're doing them now, we can look at it and be like, okay, these are all the players that I identified in the 4th round that I would take with the Packers pick at 120. These are the guys I would take at 158. I'd rather have this guy at 120 and this guy at 158 than, this guy at 120 and this guy at 158. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why we're doing things differently. So let's jump into the 5th round. Are there any quarterbacks you would take in the 5th round?
Yeah, I really like Josh Hoover out of TCU. He's a very good athlete. Ran a good offense this last year. And then another guy that we're probably going to hear about later, Sawyer Robertson out of Baylor. I would take him in the 5th round. He's one of the earliest quarterbacks I would take. He's a really mobile guy, vertical arm, and he is not afraid to attack the intermediate area. So I really like Sawyer Robertson. He's a good player.
Yeah, I also have spoiler alert. I also have Sawyer Robertson in the 5th round. I will talk about him when we get to our top 5 lists. So 6th round, any quarterbacks you would take in the 6th round, pick 199?
There is a guy. Might hear more about this guy later too. His name is Taylon Green. That's a guy I would take in the 6th round. He's just athletic freak. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but he's an athletic freak. Is all you got to know. He's like Cam Newton on steroids.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he's not actually on steroids, because
right.
His athleticism makes it seem like he might be. I also have Taylon Green in the 6th round. Jumping into the 7th round, with a lot of my stuff, I've been separating guys between the 236 and the 255 pick. Guys who I would basically pick in the middle of the 7th round versus guys who I would pick at the end of the draft. Basically just saving guys from being undrafted, basically. I don't know if you did the same.
No, I did not.
Okay. So I'll just do my 236 guys, the guys that I would take at 236. I have Gunnar Stockton. He's 6'1", 215 from Georgia.
Yep.
And then I have Baron Morton from Texas Tech, 6'2", 210. Those are the guys that I would take at 236. And then at 255, I have Cole Payton from North Dakota State. And then I have Luke Altmaier from Illinois. Those are the 2 guys that I would take at 255, but also in the 7th round. So who are your 7th round guys?
I have one 7th round guy. The rest of the guys, I was like, I don't want to waste a 7th round pick. And, actually we were on the phone earlier and we talked about like what the Packers like trend to do in the 7th round. They like to take offensive linemen. They like to take corners, defensive linemen, gunners, just kind of those depth pieces. Yep. And they have taken quarterbacks in the past, but the guy that I have as the 7th round grade is Cole Payton out of North Dakota State. I think he actually has a chance to be a decent backup. He's a dual threat with pretty good size and toughness. He played in a pro-style offense, and in that offense, it was motion heavy. And it honestly, watching his tape, it was like I could see him fitting into a LaFleur offense in a few years with a little bit of coaching.
Yeah, I agree. So looking at undrafted guys, are there guys that you'd be interested in bringing in undrafted?
I mean, you mentioned Gunner earlier. Gunner would be an interesting guy. I mean, he played high-profile football at the University of Georgia, so that was the one guy that really stuck out to me. Like, hey, if they don't take a quarterback in this draft, they want to bring him in as like a camp invite. I'm like, yeah, I would be game for that. Showed some real toughness. Played in some of the toughest places in the country, and made some big-time throws and won a lot of big-time games. So having that winning DNA is definitely something that I'm interested in with an undrafted free agent for sure.
Yeah. Two other guys that I would throw out there as potential undrafteds would be Miller Moss from Louisville and Joe Fagnano from UConn. Just a couple guys that I would throw out there as maybe some undrafted camp guys. All right. So now that we've gone through the round by round, let's get into our top fives.
Yes, sir.
So, Jake, hit me with your number one quarterback. Tell me who it is. Tell me what round you draft him in.
My number one, you want to start at the top?
We got to start at the top. I mean, we can count down if you want. We can do 5-1.
Let's do 5-1. I like that.
All right.
I like that.
All right. Let's do 5-1 then. Hit me with your number 5.
All right. My number 5 is Cole Payton out of North Dakota State.
Okay.
Like I said, he played in a pro-style offense. And when I was watching the film, I'm watching him do bootlegs. I'm watching him take what's available to him. I'm like, yeah, dude, I think this guy, he's just going to be sitting behind Jordan Love. Like you said, not to sound too redundant, we do have a franchise quarterback. So he's just going to sit there. Jordan Love's a very good guy. He's going to bring him in. I mean, just think about what they were able to do with a Malik Willis, a guy who was basically left for dead in the NFL world. Tennessee did him no favors. He comes to Green Bay. We welcome him with open arms. We coach him up. Packers do that better than anybody. If you want any reason for their success, not only do they draft well, not only do they always make sure the offensive line and defensive line is replenished every couple of years, they coach quarterbacks. It's a dying art in the NFL today, and the Packers are the best at it. I will not hear an argument on it. They are the best at coaching quarterbacks. Think about it. Seriously, take a step back and think about it. They saved Malik Willis, got him paid, and they could do that with a late-round guy like Cole Payton as well.
Yeah, I strongly agree. He's going to be higher on my list. But my number 5 is Luke Altmaier from Illinois. If they could get him at 255 with one of those last picks in the draft, I think he's a guy who's decently mobile and can move around in the pocket a little bit and potentially be on the line of scrimmage. So, you bring up a good point too. We talked about this earlier that, the 7th round picks, like they're probably going to spend them on the trenches or cornerbacks realistically. So we'll probably discuss, looking at when we do some mock drafts and stuff like that, all the outlets are going to be different, but we're just going to kind of have to weigh it and see, would we rather have Sawyer Robertson and then maybe not as good of a tight end, say, or would we rather pick a tight end in the 5th round and then take Luke Altmaier as an undrafted free agent? That's the kind of game that we're going to have to play. So, Jake, who's your number 4?
Number 4, just because of the value that he's getting, I don't think he's better than these other guys, but the value is Cade Klubnik out of Clemson. I talked about him a little bit, but he was a 5-star recruit, and he does have the physical tools to be a good quarterback. I just think that he needs a little bit more confidence, and Green Bay could be the team for that.
Yeah. Number 4 is where I have Cole Payton. Again, if they could get him at like 255, that would be great.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Who's your number 3?
My number 3 is Josh Hoover. I have Josh Hoover at number 3 out of TCU.
All right.
He's sneaky, bro. He would be a sneaky pick if, dude, seriously, I said 5th round, but if he falls to the 6th round and they don't take him, I might be a little upset. I think he's that good.
All right, interesting. Number 3 is where I have Baron Morton from Texas Tech. If they can get him at like 236, I'm good there getting a potential backup quarterback that late. Who's your number 2?
You're going to be shocked that I have him this high, but I actually have Sawyer Robinson as my number 2 quarterback. I really like him. I watched this film a couple times over, to be honest with you. So Tyler and I have this thing where we talk about where we're watching these guys and we fall in love with some of these guys, and we get to the offensive line, and both of us, that's the plateau for both of us. Like, no disrespect to the old linemen. We know how important offensive line play is, but I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like, when I'm watching quarterbacks and running backs, I'm like, ooh, sick, dude. Like, ooh, that was a nice throw. Ooh, yeah. Like, I feel like there's so much more stuff to evaluate.
Yeah, I agree.
a guy just getting into his kick slide. You know what I mean? And how
it's like
hands and
it's strong anchor or good lateral movement.
pretty much
Everybody's gonna have one of the two, and you're gonna have once in a while we're gonna have somebody that has both, and then you're like, dude, this guy's a mauler. But not everybody can be Joe Alt and have awesome offensive line tape.
Right.
So that's how you know we're grinding when we get to the offensive line show in a couple of weeks.
Oh man. So Sawyer Robinson, I watched his stuff a few times over. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but I really liked him as a prospect.
Yeah. So I have a feeling I know where this is going, and it's going to be funny to see that this is the inverse of the list. But number 2 is where I have Taylon Green.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, all right, hit me with your number 1 and tell me about him.
Yeah, I got Taylon Green out of Arkansas, man. And I wrote down, the first line I wrote down is he legit might be the most athletic quarterback I think I've ever watched in my entire life. His vert, his broad jump were all first at the combine this year versus peers, which obviously quarterback. 6'6", 227. He ran a 4.36 40, which is just filthy. He's faster than most wide receivers and running backs, dude. A 43.5-inch vertical and an 11-foot 2-inch broad jump with 10-inch hands, 9 7/8. You could take an 1/8 inch off of 10 inches. But like, are you serious, dude? Was this guy literally made in a lab, bro? That's why I was like, dude, this guy is like freaking Cam Newton on steroids, dude. So when I was watching him, one thing that I noticed is like this guy has the ability to just take broken plays and make them in the first down just with his legs, dude. Like that's a skill that you cannot coach. You cannot teach that. Either you have it or you don't. And he obviously has it. And when I was watching him, I was like, I was also thinking like, damn, he's a supersized freaking Malik Willis, because we saw Malik do that against the Ravens a couple times where it's broken plays. He's making plays with his feet, throwing the ball down the field. Now, the thing that he doesn't do that Malik got taught how to do in Green Bay is he doesn't do the intermediate game well. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't read the defense well. Now, those are all coachable things. I believe that a lot of his issues as a quarterback start with his lower body. I just talked so highly about his running ability, but his lower body with throwing the ball, I feel like his hips open up a little early, and that's where he gets some off-target throws, in my opinion. But he does have arm talent. Don't let that fool you, because he could beat you over the top. He's got the vertical arm strength to just absolutely launch that thing. So I wrote down some numbers, and I wanted to get into them real quick. So for his career, he is 715, so 715 out of 1,190 throws. That's 60%. So that's obviously something that's going to have to go up. Mm-hmm. Just talking about straight up efficiency, you have to be more efficient at the quarterback position. Yep. He has 9,662 career passing yards, almost 10,000 career passing yards, 8.1 yard average, 59 touchdowns, and 35 interceptions. So 35 interceptions is very alarming. Have to learn how to take care of the ball better. That I'm not going to mince words when I talk about that. Yeah. Now, in his career, he's been sacked 74 times, 59 times in the last 2 years.
Jesus. So
you could say, oh, he's had a bad offensive line, but we've seen quarterbacks that hold on to the ball too long. That could be some progression issues. So that kind of goes – they both go hand in hand. You have to get better at progressing, getting rid of the ball, taking what they give you, right? So then you get to the rushing stats. He has 459 carries, 2,403 rush yards, 35 touchdowns. So that's a total of 94 touchdowns. The interceptions don't hurt as bad when you realize he almost had 100 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I was excited to tell you. His career long pass is 94 yards.
Damn.
That's a long pass. His career long run is 91 yards. This guy can literally house you 90 yards with his feet or his arm. If that does not excite you as a 6th round pick in the Packers coaching tree, their system, I don't know what to tell you. This guy, and I was the first one, by the way. I have to call this out. I don't want to miss this. I was the first one that said the Packers should trade for Anthony Richardson, dude. And you know who Taylon Green got compared to? Anthony Richardson. Why not just take the version that didn't get broken yet?
Yeah, and costs way less.
Exactly.
So looking at Taylon Green, I have in my notes the 11 interceptions is a bit concerning. He was kind of like highlighted in red on my list right away just because I don't want a guy who's turnover prone. Looking at backups, because like I want somebody in a backup who's going to come in, take care of the ball, like you said, just run the offense, kind of how Malik Willis started off, and then he kind of blossomed as a playmaker, which, is something he was capable of, but that's not what he was asked to do when he first got here.
Yeah.
Like I think of, because it helps that I attended it, but the Colts game in 2024, when basically Josh Jacobs was the game.
Yep.
And the Packers grinded it out and won 16-10. Like, that's, I'm not expecting the Packers to come in and grind out a game every single time that Jordan Love isn't available, but just somebody's going to come in and run the offense and take care of the football. Now, Taylor Green had 11 interceptions on 22 turnover-worthy plays, and looking at it, the intermediate, like Jake said, which being an area for opportunity, he was 58 of 90, which is 64.4% on 10 to 19-yard throws. So I think there's some potential there, mixed in with the fact that at the Senior Bowl, he also made some nice throws. So I tampered my concern a little bit just by seeing some of the more specific numbers, and then some of the after the season type stuff. Because then looking at that 10 to 19 yard depth of target, there were 5 drops also by Arkansas wide receivers. So he could have been 63 for 90 without drops. And then you're talking him being closer to 66% completions on those passes. Actually, it would be over 66. That'd be closer to 68%. But did have 6 turnover-worthy plays and 3 interceptions in that same stretch of the field, but 9 touchdowns.
Okay.
So I think there's some opportunity there. Some of the numbers, too, are a little bit like – it's a little bit concerning, because you want to see it kind of more consistent. 6 out of his 19 passing touchdowns this season came in week 1 against Alabama A&M.
Yeah.
And then you look at his last 3 games of the season, he had 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. You look at his last 5 games of the season, he had 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Like, that's kind of rough to look at. But, again, looking at some of the post-draft stuff or the post-season stuff, like the combine, him going into knowing that he's going to be a backup, I'm open to it. So that's why I had him number 2. But my number 1 is the guy that I'm highlighting, and it is Sawyer Robertson from Baylor. He, at 6'4", 220, he's pretty similar in size to Jordan Love, actually. Not that that's a reason to draft him, but him being projected in the mid to late 5th round, if the Packers can take him in the 5th round at 158, I'm good there. Sawyer Robertson was actually really good at the Senior Bowl as well. Obviously, something the Packers put a lot of stock into.
Mm-hmm.
He was 304 for 505. That's 60%, like Jake said, something that you would want to see improve at the NFL level. Had 3,683 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. The 12 interceptions is a little high. Again, the 21 turnover-worthy plays. Baylor wide receivers did have 19 drops, which is a lot, which could have helped improve his completion percentage, but he was 30 for 83 on 20-plus yard throws, so that's encouraging that he can get the ball downfield. He had 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and over 1,000 yards on just those 20-plus yard completions. And then if you look at the 10 to 19 yard depth of target, he was 62 for 128, 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So while he doesn't have the greatest arm strength, I do think he's got arm talent. He's got some capability to change arm angles. He's got some deep ball touch. He's good versus zone defense. I think he's got good presence for when to move in the pocket and when to leave the pocket and when to run. He did have 35 carries for 156 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground as well, which is 4.5 yards a carry, which is pretty average. I would say 4.5 yards a carry is kind of where you'd want to be around. But I think if he can cut down his turnover-worthy plays, I think he'd be a really good Jordan Love backup.
Yeah, I agree. I said it before. I like Sawyer Robinson. He'd be a really good draft pick.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You're going to do running backs.
Let's get into it.
All right. Going into running backs, so we're going to look at this again. Now, with running backs, a little bit different. Again, we're looking at backups because obviously Josh Jacobs is around. Chris Brooks was extended, so Chris Brooks will be back. Emmanuel Wilson did sign with the Seahawks, and then we don't really know what's going to happen with Marshawn Lloyd. Yeah. So essentially, we were looking for 10 running backs round 3 or later that are essentially going to be backups for the Packers. I cut it down to 8 just because, in my opinion, the running back class is a little underwhelming. When we did the 2023 running back class, that was absolutely loaded.
Loaded.
It was Bijan and Charbonnet and Gibbs. Even down to Roshan Johnson was my number 15 running back in that class. And he's carved out a role in the NFL.
Yeah.
So this class is not that. Just to be blunt, I'm not super excited about the 2026 running back class. So that said, I don't have any running backs that I would take in the 3rd round.
I have guys that, like, if they traded up in like the last pick or 2 in the 3rd round, I'd be like, okay, they must have really wanted this guy. I knew that somebody was going to take him early in the 4th. I wouldn't be too upset, but most of my guys are 4th round and later.
Okay.
Like all my guys are 4th round and later.
So Packers at pick 84 of the 3rd round. Again, like I said, I don't have anybody there, but if you have some guys you want to throw out before we jump into the 4th round picks, if you want to throw those out before we get there.
If Jadarian Price from Notre Dame is available at 84, and the Packers are just like, we are going to have a 2-headed monster at running back. We're gonna do what we did with Aaron Jones, and we're gonna protect Josh Jacobs during the year, and we're gonna have 2 guys that just, Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones style, where we just have 2 guys that just pound the rock, and they could both catch the ball and they could both make moves in space. Jadarian Price is the only guy that I think I would consider in the 3rd round.
Okay. All right, let's jump into the 4th round. What running backs would you take at pick 120?
Yeah, so I have Jonah Coleman from Washington, good player. I think he's a good scheme fit. Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska is a good scheme fit as well. He's got some really good burst. I could talk all day about that guy. I probably should have picked him as one of my guys to highlight, but I like the 2 that I picked anyways. And then my other one is my last one in the 4th round is Roman Hemby out of Indy. I like him too. He's tough. He's an interesting prospect.
Interesting. The 4th round, I have the pair of Penn State running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. Then I have Mike Washington Jr., who did himself well at the Combine. And then I have Robert Henry Jr., being one of my guys that I would take in the 4th round. So he's one where, like, potentially if the Packers are sitting at 120 and somebody calls with, the 135th pick and the Packers can move back in the 4th round, if they can trade back into the 4th round a little bit, maybe pick up an extra pick and still take Robert Henry, that would be like an ideal scenario in my mind, is they could trade back just a little bit in the 4th round or up from 158 if they wanted to do that also. Steve asked, do you guys think Jacobs is back after his deal expires? If not, running back could be a sneaky need.
They have a lot of cap room next year, man. They could sign somebody next year.
That's kind of what I was thinking, is like, not that it's the way you want to necessarily approach it, like not having a plan. Yeah. But I mean, the Super Bowl MVP just fell into the Chiefs' lap.
Seriously.
It just absolutely just fell into their lap at running back. I mean, I'm not saying that the next Super Bowl MVP is going to be a running back and he's going to fall into our laps, but I mean, if guys like that are available, I mean, there's good running backs out there in the NFL.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Saquon fell into the Eagles' lap. So, I mean, obviously we had Josh Jacobs come to the Packers. I mean, I think there's options out there. To me, it's going to be more dependent on his health than anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's jump into 5th round.
Yeah, so I have Jamari Taylor out of Virginia. Really like him. I really, really like him. He's tough, dude. Like, he played through a lot of injuries. He's a tough guy. I know that most of his stats are from FCS. I don't want to talk too long, but I like Jamari Taylor. I have Nick Singleton from Penn State. I have Robert Henry from UTSA. And then I have Damon Claiborne from Wake Forest in the 5th as a 5th round guy. He was almost a 4th round guy for me, but I have him in the 5th round.
Yeah. IPVanish protects every device you own. Your phone, your laptop, your smart TV. If it connects to the internet, it should be protected. IPVanish encrypts your connection and masks your IP address, helping keep your browsing private at home and on public Wi-Fi. And with no device limits, one account covers everything. Stream with added privacy, browse securely, connect with confidence. Online protection made simple. Right now, save 83% off the 2-year plan. Get started today at ipvanish.com/audio and take control of your privacy with IPVanish.
I also have Damon Claiborne in the 5th. I have Roman Hemby in the 5th. And then I have Jaden Ott as a guy who the Packers could potentially take in the 5th or maybe move back a little bit in the 5th round. Michael asked, any word on Lloyd? It's either shit or get off the pot time, just saying I love the guy when we drafted him. I'm honestly the other way around. I honestly didn't love the pick. But I want to see him healthy just to see if I was wrong about him. But unfortunately, we haven't even gotten a chance to see if anybody's going to be right or wrong about the pick or not, up to and including Brian Gutekunst, which I'm sure is frustrating. But there's no reason for them to just cut him because he's on his rookie deal. So he's still got this year and next year. Again, not that you want to sit and wait around on a guy to get healthy. But Steve said, remember, Goody has used premium picks on both A.J. Dillon and Marshawn Lloyd, but I agree with you too. And that's something that also they had first-round picks in those years.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about it this year. We're looking at the second-round pick as basically our first-round pick. It's kind of the way I'm approaching it.
Yeah.
So the second-round pick, in my mind, has to be a first-round pick level importance, and it should have such emphasis placed on it, in my mind.
So let me respond here. Michael, I agree with Michael, and I agree with you to his comment. I agree that it's either shit or get off the pot time. And I agree with you. I didn't really love the pick at the time, but I would love to be proven wrong. In terms of Steve talking about how Goody spent premium high draft value on Dillon and Marshawn Lloyd, might be a reason why he doesn't do that this year. He's gotten
especially this year.
He's gotten burned pretty badly. I mean, A.J. Dillon was all right, and Marshawn Lloyd is – I don't want to, shit on the guy, but he's not fulfilling his draft status. Let's just be honest about it, right? So that
if
might
would have been one round later, I would have been okay with it.
Yeah. Dude, 6th round, you draft a guy in the 6th round, I'm going to be like, okay, give this guy a chance, I guess. He's super cheap, and we're going to see if he holds onto the ball.
I mean, even if you look at the Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, that was, 4th and 6th round?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not as much investment there. I think it was 4th and 6th.
Yeah, something like that. It was later.
Yeah. I know Aaron Jones was a 4th round pick.
Yep.
So we left off in the 5th. Let's go to the 6th round. Who would you take from running backs in the 6th round?
I also have Ott in the 6th round. Okay. But then I have Mike Washington out of Arkansas in the 6th round as well.
Okay. The 6th round is where I have Seth McGowan. I have Adam Randall. I believe he's from Clemson. And then I also have Dean Connors, who was really close to being a guy that I highlighted. Just looking at him showing up on tape when watching other players. That's the kind of stuff that really gets my attention. Like when I'm going to watch, at the time I was watching Connor Wegman for quarterback tape, and then he ended up going back to Houston. So it's like, well, shit, that was time wasted. Not necessarily wasted, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Dean Connors popped off while watching somebody else's tape. That's the kind of stuff where it's like, okay, if I'm noticing you when I'm not looking for you, those are the kind of guys where it's like, if I was a scout, I'd be excited to notice those kind of things.
Yeah.
Now, there's going to be some guys when we talk about them that it's going to be like, well, no, duh, you noticed Bryce Lance while you were watching Sawyer Robertson. So there's going to be stuff like that. But Dean Connors, I feel like, is a guy who's projected in the 6th or 7th round that I think if the Packers took him in the 6th round, I'd be really excited about it. Steve said he would love Mike Washington, I bet, because of the combine. Just saying. Maybe not, but just throwing that out there. So that's who I have for the 6th round. Who do you have in the 7th round that you would take, whether it's pick 236 or 255?
I have one guy in the 7th round. It's Seth McGowan, and it has nothing to do with his talent.
Okay.
Just saying.
I think I know where you're kind of going with that. The 7th round is where I have Jamari Taylor, Jamal Haynes from Georgia Tech. I have Kalen Black, Noah Whittington from Oregon. Those guys I would take at 236. And then at 255, I have Le'Veon Moss, CJ Donaldson, Desmond Reed. And then if there's any, do you have any undrafted guys you would want to throw out there?
No, I just honestly, the 7th round and undrafted is pretty much the same for me in my eyes, honestly. And like
Like I
we
said,
have.
the
What do we have?
class in my mind is super underwhelming.
We have the last pick in the draft and like the third last pick in the draft, the 7th round picks, and then we have 236, which is like the 20th last pick in the draft. So I mean, you're taking these guys, and there's going to be like 15 guys that they're looking at. You might as well just get them undrafted, honestly.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Okay, so looking at the two undrafted guys that I wrote down were Terrion Stewart and Jim Marion Miller from Alabama. So like,
oh, okay,
nothing crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump in. I asked Jake, I'm like, honestly, I don't love this running back class, so I'm like, I'm just gonna cut it down to 8, top 8. So Jake still has top 10. So Jake, hit me with your 10 and 9, and then we'll go 8 on.
So my 10 I have to talk about a little bit because it is Seth McGowan. And that's one of my guys I'm going to highlight. He played at 4 different colleges, and you're like, wow, why did he play at 4 different colleges? Well, he was a very highly touted recruit coming into Oklahoma. We have to talk about the legal stuff.
Yep.
I'm not going to mention any details or anything. It's all over the internet, and I don't want to like make anybody relive their troubled past, but he does have some character issues. Just going to say that. That's why he's in the 7th round, and I think that you caught my drift when I said that.
Yep.
Because this guy in the field, he's a tough runner. He's very good at converting speed to power. He keeps his legs moving. He runs through arm tackles. He gets extra yards. He falls forward. Falling forward is something that is very important to a running back. The running backs that fall forward and don't get pushed back, those are the guys that you want. Yeah. That's the guy that you can hand the ball off to on 2nd and 1, and you trust him to get the extra foot that's going to get you a first down.
Or at the goal line.
Or goal line, right? He always keeps his eyes downfield when looking, when making cuts. He has fluid hips. He's always looking for that home run. He stacks his cuts with good feet and good burst, especially for a guy who is, what did I write? He's 6 foot 223. He ran a 4.49 40, so pretty good. He has a 1.60 10-yard split, which is a little bit above average, but when you consider his size, that's pretty good for a guy who's 220, 42-inch vertical, so he's got lots of power. And he does have some fumble concerns. He has 5 over the last 2 years, but this is a guy that had football ripped away from him, honestly, because of some decisions he made off the field. But for him to, make mistakes, we've all made mistakes. I'm not going to kill the guy for it. I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt. Everybody deserves a second chance, I believe. I guess depending on the thing that you do, I guess. But he has worked hard to get back into Power 4 football. So for him to get back into the SEC, and he played for New Mexico State, Butler Community College of El Dorado was one of the schools that he attended. So, I mean, for him to get back into Power 4 football says a lot about his character as well. He's a hard worker, so I would like him. My number 9, after seeing Steve talk about how much he loves Mike Washington, I'm a little scared to say this out loud now, but my number 9 is Mike Washington out of Arkansas.
Yeah. I just want to throw out on Seth McGowan. I do think he's got a capable he's a capable wide receiver, and he did force 35 missed tackles. So I think, when you're talking about falling forward, I think he's got some not that he's necessarily elusive and he's like breaking guys' ankles and stuff like that, but
yeah.
I think he's got some running through contact. And in my notes that I put down that he had he was best between the tackles, and he was at the Senior Bowl, and he actually had the longest run in the Senior Bowl game at 30 yards.
Oh, that's impressive because he didn't have that many long runs last year.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 8 is where I have Damon Claiborne. From Wake Forest. He's 5'10", 195. Who was your number 8?
I also have Damon Claiborne as my number 8. He's a good player. I think he's getting a little bit overvalued in some of these mock drafts, just my opinion. But I like him. He's all right.
He's honestly, with almost everybody on offense outside of a handful of wide receivers and maybe a couple tight ends, I'm willing to take guys like a round later than they're being projected. And obviously not everybody can be projected in the top 100. You can't have 120 guys get picked in the top 100, so some of those guys are going to fall. But a lot of the guys on the offensive side of the ball, I'm looking at like a round later than they're currently being projected by other outlets and scouts. So with Damon Claiborne, a couple things concern me. The fact that he had 6 drops on only 38 targets, that's a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, this should kind of go without saying, it does change a little bit with the Packers extending Chris Brooks because that hadn't happened before I had my running back notes taken. I was also looking at guys pass blocking, and Damon Claiborne is not that. He had a 29.0 pass blocking grade per PFF, which, again, we always take with a grain of salt. But if 60 is their average, 29 is bad. There's no sugarcoating that. It's not like, he's graded a 53 out of, and 60 is average, and you can be like, oh, well, he's almost average. That you're talking half of the average. So a little bit of concern there. But looking at number 7, I have Jamal Haynes out of Georgia Tech. Now, he's 5'9", 190 pounds, and projected to be a 7th-round pick. So we're looking at late-round picks here. But looking at him, he was actually the MVP of the American Bowl. So there's, a little bit of interesting stuff with him. He actually started as a wide receiver in 2021 and then switched to running back in 2023. So some dual threat ability there. So I have Jamal Haynes in my number 7.
That's a really good pick. He's a guy that probably has a step up on these guys in the receiving game. He definitely understands the route tree a little bit better than most running backs. That's a good pick. I like that. My number 7 is, Robert Henry out of UTSA. I'm not going to talk too much about him because we're going to hear somebody else talk about him.
Yeah. All right. Number 6, I have Adam Randall out of Clemson. If we can get him at in the 6th round at 199, I would be happy with that.
Yeah, my number 6, I have Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State. Again, this is another guy that I feel like is getting overhyped a little bit. I do think that excuse me again, Jesus Christ. He's a good power back, so he'd be a good compliment if the Packers are looking for a power back with Josh Jacobs. He is good in the red zone, and he's a tough runner, so he literally could just be a replacement for Josh Jacobs if Josh Jacobs has like an annoying ankle injury for 2 weeks or something like that. I can see him being a guy that could fill the role for Josh.
Yeah, just step in and keep everything kind of the same.
Yep.
All righty. Number 5, I have Jaden Ott from Oklahoma. If they can have him, if they can move back in the 5th round, and they can, again, if they can pick up extra picks, that's something that I'm interested in, given the fact that the Packers have no first-rounders next year or this year.
Yeah. So for me, I have Jamari Taylor out of Virginia, my number 5. He has 5 years of experience. He has almost 3,000 rush yards. 37 touchdowns. He ran a 4.39 40. He's a tough guy, barely missed any games. I think that he provides some real value in the 5th, 6th round.
Yeah, that's a really good point on durability.
Yes.
Number 4 is where I have Dean Connors, just because he's being projected so late. If the Packers can spend a 6th-round pick on a guy who can make a difference with a 6th-round pick, again, like I said, seeing him jumping off the tape while I'm watching a quarterback and noticing a running back while watching a quarterback highlights, he was 34 for 39 when targeted in the passing game for 254 yards and 3 touchdowns. At the Shrine Bowl, again, the Packers, they like those post-season bowls, the kind of conglomerate bowls. He was praised for finishing runs with power and agility. His comp is a stronger James White with a similar style to Jamal Williams.
Really? I didn't even read that. Wow.
So Dean Connors, my number 4. Not one of the guys that I was highlighting, but he was very close to being one of my top guys to highlight. But Dean Connors in the 6th round would be my number 4.
All right. My number 4 is a guy who I had in the 4th round. That's Roman Hemby out of Indiana. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about him, but I will say this guy fits the Packers offense very well.
Yeah.
Now, Tyler and I talked, this must have been a month ago now. We were talking about this. It probably was a month ago now, I'm thinking about it. But we talked about how Roman Hemby, and we were talking about him because you were like, I'm going to take Roman. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then we started talking about the running backs. And we're like, dude, all these guys need work in pass pro, bro. But that's the only problem I see with Roman Hemby.
Yeah.
Literally. That's the only problem I see with him. He's a good pass catcher, tough runner, really good between the tackles. Obviously, Big Ten style football, and part of the best season in Indiana history. So to this point,
Yeah. So number 3 is where I have Mike Washington. So Mike is super high on Mike Washington. He's kind of projected in the late fourth. So if Packers could move back from 120, pick up an extra pick, and then still take Mike Washington in the late fourth round, I'd be very interested in that. He's 6'2", 228. So he's got some beef for our running back. A lot of running backs are kind of between that 210 or 200 to 215 ish range. So 228 is got some beef. And the interesting thing about that is he was actually the fastest player at the Senior Bowl. It was clocked at 21.21 miles per hour. His comp was actually Isaiah Pacheco.
Oh, that's a good comp.
So one of the things that I read is if we're looking at a vision for Green Bay, it's like A.J. Dillon but faster. That's kind of the way that the Packers could potentially use a guy like Mike Washington. Like you said, most of these guys are pretty abysmal in pass blocking. 27.9 pass block grade for Mike Washington, but average 6.4 yards per carry, forced 34 missed tackles. Again, strong performance at the Senior Bowl. The Packers put a lot of stock into that. So wouldn't shock me if Mike Washington ends up being a Packer in the 4th or the 5th round if he's available.
Yeah.
All right, who you got at number 3?
My number 3, this guy, my 1 through 3 are pretty much the same player. Like, in my eyes, value-wise, I like all of them a lot. My number 3 is Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska. This guy's 5'10", 200 pounds. And, you see those guys that go to the combine and all of a sudden their stock is rising because they run a 4.33 and they jump out of the gym. I mean, I just talked about a quarterback, Taylor Green, who helped himself probably be drafted because he's so athletic. Otherwise, he probably would have been an undrafted guy. Like, ooh, this guy's got a lot of raw potential.
Like a late round flyer because of his size.
You're right. But Emmett Johnson, I feel like, is a guy that's kind of opposite of that in a way, where like he only ran a 4.56 40. That's what he got clocked at. But I feel like he's faster than his 40 time. Like, he feels faster when I'm watching him. He also has really good hands. He has a complete route tree. He had 46 receptions last year as a running back. So he's a legit 3-down back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run the ball between the tackles. Really good vision, patience to set up blocks. I know this is not one of my guys, but I really like Emmett Johnson. So Emmett Johnson in the 4th round or even the 5th round, if they could fall back around and draft him, would be a tremendous pick to me.
Yeah, when I was reading about him, a lot of the things that I was reading was that he was going to go in the 3rd. So he did not make my list. So number 2 is where I have Robert Henry Jr. He is one of my guys to cover. And you read running back from UTSA 5'9", 205, and you're like, oh, that's Aaron Jones. So based on his size, his potential skill set, depending on his speed, I do think of him kind of like Aaron Jones. He had 153 carries for 1,051 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 fumbles, 33 missed tackles forced. He had 24 10-plus yard runs this season. So you're talking about 1 out of every 6 runs went for 10-plus yards from Robert Henry. And then, this is wild to me, he had 6 70-plus yard plays. That is wild.
That is insane.
A 91.9 elusiveness rating, which, again, that's a really kind of niche stat. Once you're kind of approaching that 100 mark, and again, this is a PFF stat, metric, whatever you want to call it, seeing him, he's strong and fast, he's decisive with good vision, makes good cuts, essentially does all the things that I didn't like about Emmanuel Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
So there were times last year where we're watching Emmanuel Wilson, and it's like, dude, if you just take one jump cut and cut back the other direction, you have a big-ass hole and 8 yards that you could have found instead of running into the back of your offensive line. That is the kind of thing that I feel that Robert Henry is good at. With that, 17 of 24 in the passing game, had 112 yards, 2 more touchdowns, did have 2 drops, and was a slightly below average pass blocker. But like I said, you see UTSA running back and you think Aaron Jones. I think he's got a similar type skill set. Again, I'm not projecting him to be Aaron Jones because Aaron Jones was really, really good for the Packers for half a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But a similar skill set. And like I said, he's good at the things that I didn't like about Emmanuel Wilson last season. So who's your number 2?
My number 2 is my next guy to highlight. Although I might talk about my number 1 guy because I love him too. I told you my 1 through 3, I just love all of them. Like value-wise. Jonah Coleman out of Washington. He's listed as 5'8", 5'9", 220 to 215, wherever you're looking, I guess. All these sites are different with the sizes of these guys. I'm like, is he 5'8" or 5'9"? Somebody just tell me how tall this guy is, dude. But I think he's a guy that can develop into a nice backup. He understands how to set up blocks. He shows really good patience. His pass pro, I thought, this is the reason that I have him as my number 2 guy. I thought he was probably the best in this class at picking up blitzers. He understands how blocks are materializing, and he's able to square guys up and pick up blitzes. The one thing that I didn't really like about him is that he looked like he lacked the burst to get to the edge against speedier outside guys. He needs to press the hole more like he does on his inside zones. He's really good at pressing the hole in his inside zones and one-cutting and recognizing when the blocks are materializing and, hitting that hole and getting up to full speed in a couple steps. But, on the outside zones, he just doesn't get there quick enough, in my opinion. But he has 1 career fumble in 4 seasons, so ball security is a really important thing to the Packers. That's a really good thing that, they look at. He's also a great pass catcher, able to catch and turn upfield. He looks natural. He's also really good in the red zone. He has 34 career rushing touchdowns in the red zone. That shows that he understands pad level and he's a competitor. So being able to finish in the red zone, something the Packers struggle with at times. He takes care of the ball. That's something the Packers value. He can pass block a little bit. That's something the Packers value. And he runs the fucking inside zone. That's something the Packers value. So I was like, yeah, this guy fits the Packers. So I'm in.
All right. I feel kind of similarly about my number 1 guy, who is Roman Hemby from Indiana and Maryland. The 2 stops that he had in college, both Big Ten schools. Looking at him, projected to go in the late 5th, early 6th, this is one guy that I would actually be willing to take kind of at his draft capital projection, depending on a couple different sources. Again, there's not going to be an exact, this is where he's going to go, because obviously that's not how it works. So for him to be projected in the late 5th, early 6th, I would be okay with the Packers taking him at 158. If they want to move back a little bit, again, to take a guy and pick up an extra pick, I'm obviously on board with that as well. But Roman Hemby, 6 foot, 210, 230 carries. Showed that he can be kind of a workhorse as far as college goes. 1,118 yards. It's 4.9 yards per carry. 7 touchdowns, only 1 fumble. Forced 37 missed tackles. Now, yards after contact. He had 1,118 yards total, 773 yards after contact.
Whoa.
That is wild to me. Looking at his yards per carry after contact, in 2023, it was 3.76. In 2024, it was 2.98. In 2025, it was 3.36. So you're talking about a guy who averages over 3 yards a carry after contact.
Sorry.
That's like where Jake's talking before about guys that can fall forward on a run. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who can get you a couple extra yards after guys are starting to tackle him.
Yeah.
He's versatile, I think. He's got ability to run inside and outside, and in the passing game as a slot guy occasionally. I do think he's got the potential to be a true dual threat. He was 17 of 18 when targeted in the passing game for another 166 yards. He's got good burst, good speed, good change of direction, and I think he's got really good balance to bounce off of shoulder tackles, something which, as Packer fans, drives us absolutely insane when guys are trying to attempt them. But if there are guys trying to attempt shoulder tackles, I think he is very good at bouncing off of those and staying on balance. So Roman Hemby in the 5th round at 158, or potentially later if Gutekunst wants to trade back, would be my number 1 running back.
My number 1 running back is no secret. I said it before. I like Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. Now, the one thing that's going to scare some teams away is the guy that tore his Achilles in 2022, but he's been healthy ever since. But this guy has legit speed. He has multiple kick returns, so he brings you value on special teams. The Packers can add more juice to the special teams room that they've already been adding this offseason really make an emphasis to make the special teams like special. Like, let's be special on special teams.
Yeah.
Let's make that a legit weapon of ours. Look at what happened to the Seahawks once they actually took that seriously. They played defense, the special teams was good, and then just ask the quarterback to take care of the ball and hand the goddamn thing off. Get it to your playmaker, wide receiver. Oh, my God, you won a Super Bowl. Wow.
Pretty easily, it looked like.
Dude, they walked through the playoffs.
I'm not even sugarcoating it. They dog walk everybody they played.
Yeah, like, not that I wanted to lose to the Bears, but I'm glad I wasn't the 49ers that next week is all I'm going to say.
I said it like the Seahawks scored more points on the opening kickoff than the 49ers did in 60 minutes.
Yeah, that was insane. Yeah. So in terms of Jadarian Price, very good vision and patience. He sets up blocks naturally, finds cutback lanes consistently. He's explosive through the hole. He's a guy that takes, like, when you watch those plays where it looks like the hole's closing and all of a sudden the running back bursts through. Like, you remember watching that with Adrian Peterson like 2 times a year every time he played the Packers? That's what Price does.
Could have gone without
that. So he's really good with his pad level, breaks through arm tackles. The one thing that he does lack is, well, first of all, he was stuck behind Jeremiah Love. So he didn't really get to showcase himself as a running back one, so he didn't get the workload. But he also didn't get to prove himself as a receiving back because of situation of being a running back too. So we don't really, that's unknown for him as well. But he'd be the perfect complement to a guy who I'd call as a grinder in Josh Jacobs, a guy who is a bell cow, 25 to 30 classic style running back that just gets stronger as the game goes on. Now. Josh Jacobs is Josh Jacobs. He's one of the best 10 running backs in the league. He's also a guy that can take it to the house. I'm not saying it, throwing any shade at Josh Jacobs. He could definitely house you. I mean, just ask the Broncos. He did it to them, and he was hurt.
Yeah.
But Jadarian Price is a guy that is a legit home run threat every time he touches the ball because of when he gets into the open field, he's one of those guys that you just don't catch from behind.
Yeah. And what round did you take him in?
I said 4th round.
Okay. Alrighty. So there it is. That's week 1 of our draft season. Scott, welcome in. We're kind of wrapping up, but you can go back and watch it again. That's the beauty of it being on the internet is you can rewatch it. So
yes, sir.
Again, and Scott, definitely come back next week and the following weeks. We are going to have next week wide receivers and tight ends. I'm very excited about that one. But again, we hope everybody enjoyed the new style, the new format, as we're looking round by round and then giving a top 10 based more on value. Where we think there can be some value had versus just giving you a top 10 list at the position. And then out of the, 120 guys that we talk about, 110 of them go in the first 4 rounds of the draft. And then you get later on and you're like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? We want to be able to give some more relevant information as far as the Green Bay Packers are concerned, and not just a top 10 list that you can pull up from 15, 30 different sites on Google with a simple Google search. So we wanted to make it a little bit more specific. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. And then also tune in tomorrow for our basketball recaps because tomorrow is our last Wednesday without baseball.
Yeah.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial. If you're a podcast host, listen up. This one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle. And I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.